Okay, here we go. So this paper that I'm going to present is dealing with these issues that I've mentioned already in the introduction of this session, namely the acquisition of skills during adulthood through training courses. And this is a joint project together with many colleagues, also from Maastricht and from Tallinn. And this is also a product of our EU Horizon 2020 project Techniquality, where which recently we concluded, and where we analyzed the relation between technological innovations and social inequality. Okay, so yeah, so I don't need to can be really quick about the background. So this higher skill demand due to technological change, I already talked about, and digital problem solving skills are going to be presumably one of the key skills in this new world of work. So workers need to update their skills to remain employable, and if their job is lost due to digitalization, move from declining to emerging occupations even. So the policy solution that then often is offered is adult education, further training. But the question is, of course, does it really work? So is further training really a good policy measure and to equip these adults, especially adults at risk, with the skills they need? So for this paper, we pose two research questions. The first one is, can adult workers acquire digital problem-solving skills through further training? So this is really a causal question about the effect of training. Can we find one? And the second one that we asked in this paper, but I have to already caution that we cannot, we had to conclude that we cannot really answer it. But still, I think this is still worthwhile asking, in which countries is the effect of training stronger, to see whether there are maybe best case countries where really adult education in terms of the acquisition of digital problem-solving skills works better. So coming to the theoretical background of this paper, and thinking about what actually determines ICT skills, there's a very nice paper by Alexandra Wicht and colleagues who identified general skills, ICT skill use, demographics, and context as most important determinants of ICT skills. But of course, as I already talked about in the beginning, I think from a policy point of view, it's also important to ask the question, what about non-formal further training courses? Because this is really something that we can implement. So it's really important to think about what the role of these courses can be, I think. From previous research, we have seen that there is, if you are really use advanced methods, there is no measurable training effects on general skills, math and reading. There's some papers on this. However, we think that, or we thought, at least at the beginning of this paper, that effects on ICT skills may be more plausible because they are often the goal of the courses. So many courses are on ICT techniques. And also this is really a way, at least when you look around in the world of work, this is really a pathway that at least people talk about, that where they learn ICT skills when they have not learned it in school. So all those cohorts that entered the labor market before ICT skills were really taught at school. However, the recent papers that also looked at general skills used brought some evidence forward about the relevance of practice engagement theory, which basically states that it's not so much the training courses, but rather the actual use of skills that leads to skill development in adulthood. And the courses may only be kind of the starting point for skill use that then leads to skill development. So on the background of these theoretical considerations, we derive three expectations. So the first one would be that non-formal further training courses may have a small positive effect on ICT skills. We say here, yeah, I mean, it's probably small, if anything. Then secondly, that the training effects should be larger among older workers, so especially these cohorts that did not learn these skills at school. I mean, they have, that's probably the way we expect how they acquire these skills through these training courses. And the third one would be, and this is derived from the idea of that is really skill use much more, that these training effects should be larger and just with high ICT skill use, because there, this is really then the environment also where if you take a training and then use it also, you develop these skills. Okay, the data we don't need to talk about this because this is what the conference is all about. PIAAC. We selected individuals aged 16 to 65 from the first two rounds of PIAAC. The public use files, independent employment, and not in formal education, so they are on the labor market. We use this measurement of problem solving in technology-rich environments. And our main independent variable is obviously the participation in non-formal further training. Coming to the empirical strategy and a lot of problems with the estimation of effects of training. The first is more related to the data, which is that, of course, we don't know what people are training in PIAAC. And it could be ICT, it could also be anything else. So this is really one of the problems when estimating the effect. The second one, when estimating this on observational data, especially in cross-sectional designs, is of course the direction of causality, because of course people with higher ICT skills may also, higher ICT skills may also lead to further training participation. And last but not least, of course, confounding, meaning that training and ICT skills are caused actually by other factors, measured and unmeasured. Okay, so we came up with two ideas to tackle this. The first would be very classical regression with controls for all kinds of observables that we have in the data. And in PIAAC, of course, we have a lot of covariates. However, there could still be unobserved confounders. Also, a problem could be over control. So if you, for example, control on something that is caused by both training and ICT skills, then you run into something that's called collider bias, and then also maybe bias the results. And therefore, we looked at another technique that was used in papers on training participation, actually, that is called the comparison group approach, where we use information about involuntarily missed courses, meaning that we compare people who took courses with those who did not take courses, but stated that they involuntarily missed the courses. The assumption here is, of course, that the missed courses, that the causes for missing the courses are random, or at least conditionally random when you control for further variables. And also, I mean, this technique is really reducing the sample size because you only had those people who said that they would that they missed courses, at least in the control group. To implement this comparison group approach in PIAAC, we used this question about were there any more learning activities you wanted to participate but did not, and then looking at the reasons that people gave, we chose the last 4 ones: too busy at work, inconvenient time, childcare, family responsibilities, or, and this is probably the only really random reason, something unexpected came up. So of course, but we could not only use the last one because this would reduce the sample too much. So we took these 4 reasons and then also added control variables because, of course, these may be confounded with, for example, gender and family status, for example. But this is as close as we get, and I will show you the results in a second. But to make this more clear, again, I provide you this table where I kind of show the treatment and control groups in our study. So the number 0 is really like the traditional approach of comparing people with any training as a treatment, and in the control group, those with no training. And in the comparison group approach, you would compare in the treatment group those with 1 training course with those in the control group with no training who involuntarily missed 1 training due to more or less random reasons. And you can then look at 2, 3 trainings with the appropriate control groups. In this regular approach, we have about the whole of PIAAC more than 50,000 observations. In the first comparison, this is reduced to 7,000. So you see really a large reduction in precision, of course, due to this comparison group approach. And I can show you just quickly here that we have a bunch of control variables also in country fixed effects. Okay, but looking at the time, I think I should come to some results. Here on this slide, you see on the topmost estimate is this traditional approach of any non-formal training participation with the control variables I showed you, and you see a strong, rather substantive and significant positive coefficient here of training participation on ICT skills, so strong, even conditional correlation. However, if you use this comparison group approach and really compare people who are more similar, and we can also show that they're more similar when we look at the descriptive statistics, there is really nothing much, and also you see the precision of the estimate also is reduced a lot. If we then look at interactions with age, we have to see, so I also have this here both for the regular estimation and for the first comparison group. We really see that there's not much going on in terms of differences in age, so this expectation did not hold. But we find some differences in terms of ICT skill use as expected, both for the regular estimation, but this is, as you can see by the large confidence intervals, this interaction is not statistically significant. But when we use comparison group approach, this interaction is actually statistically significant. Well, for those with the largest or with a very high ICT use in their job, we get at an estimate of a positive training effect that is, well, I mean, it's still not significant. And also this is like the top 90th percentile or so of ICT use. But it goes at least in the expected direction. Okay, and last, I wanted to show you country-specific effects. And here we can see that there's, well, I mean, the samples, the country-specific samples are too small to really make something out of this, as you can see by all these confidence intervals. And also the country grouping is, we couldn't make any sense out of it. So we conclude more or less that there's really no systematic country differences. Okay. Coming to an end, I showed you that there are substantial differences in ICT skills between training participants and non-participants, even after controls. This is not something new. But if we use this comparison group approach, which we think at least gets us a little bit closer to a causal effect, the effect is well, really small or non-existent. We find no differences in training effects between age groups, but there is some indication that in jobs with high ICT use, there is maybe a small positive effect even, but we're also not sure because of the imprecision of the estimate, which could point to the importance of content, because it's more likely also that these people in these high ICT jobs attend more ICT courses, but obviously we don't know. And also this practice engagement theory that I talked about earlier. So this is really people who use these skills and take training, they have higher skills in the end. And we find no systematic difference between countries. So as a take home, maybe, so on the one hand, this is really another paper showing that training effects on anything like wages or skills or occupational mobility are really small if you use really sophisticated methods or non-existent even. But I think there are two interesting insights here. One is that really the skill use seems to matter. And I think this kind of, I think there's certain could be something derived for also surveying of training participation in PIAAC maybe in the future on other surveys, where we should maybe look more closely at what kind of content of the training people are actually doing, and also maybe relating this content to the competence domains that are measured in the surveys. Okay,